Mr. K. Sampath, Speaker of the Day, Mr. Rajesh Mahana, President, Delhi Tax Bar Association and Coordinator of the Day, J.S. Rana ji, President, Mr. K.G. Bansal, Secretary, J.S. Pathak ji, Joint Secretary, Mithilesh Tiwari ji, Treasurer, all the senior members and members of Delhi Tax Bar Association. I, on behalf of Delhi Tax Bar Association, welcome you in the study circle meeting. Friends, as you are aware that our finance minister presented the finance bill 2021 on 1st of February in Parliament. इसमें डिफरेंट व्यू आ रहे हैं कि ये आत्मनिर्भर भारत का बजट है, दिस बजट फॉर लोकल फॉर वोकल, और ये प्रोफेशनल व्यू से ये बजट की क्या इम्प्लीकेशन है, उसमें क्या चेंजेस हैं, वो आज के हमारे स्पीकर इस पर हाईलाइट करेंगे अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन में. बिफोर आई इनवाइट, may I request our president Mr. J.S. Rana to please give his opening remarks. Over to J.S. Rana.
Thank you, Raman ji. Good evening to all. Respected Advocate Sri K. Sampath ji, Speaker of today meeting. Respected Advocate Sri Rajesh Mahana ji, ex-President DTBA and Coordinator of today meeting. Respected Sri A.K. Sharma ji, ex-President DTBA. Respected V.K. Varshney ji, ex-President DTBA. Sri Ramanand Roy ji, Vice President and Convener of Study Circle meeting. Mr. K.G. Bansal, Secretary. Mr. G.S. Pathak, Joint Secretary. Mr. Mithilesh Tiwari, Treasurer. All respected senior members of DTBA and friends. I, on behalf of Delhi Tax Bar Association, welcome Advocate K. Sampath ji and all senior member of the bar and professionals in this 24th study circle meeting of DTBA. Today topic is Union Budget 2021. In this regard, one of my friend in light mood suggested me that after detailed analyzing, I have come to the final conclusion of this budget 2021. One, anything that you already have will become cheaper. Second, anything that you want to have will be costlier. That means this budget is not so simple. You can say everybody is saying that this budget is very simple. Both the parties, employer or employee, want something. Employer give to employee or employee want कि some relief will be given by the employer. But हमारे बीच में के संपत जी जो एक्सपर्ट हैं और वो हमको गाइड करेंगे कि बजट के अंदर क्या डिटेल के अंदर इसके अंदर क्या माइन्यूट चीज है. तो के संपत जी को सब जानते हैं, हमारी बार में बहुत पुराने मेंबर हैं हमारी बार के. फिर भी मैं हमारी बार के सीनियर मेंबर श्री राजेश महाना जी को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो के संपत जी को इनवाइट करें और वेलकम करें और आज की उस पर इनवाइट करें आज के टॉपिक के ऊपर. श्री राजेश महाना जी, धन्यवाद. थैंक यू.
Thank you. Honorable Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and Mr. K.G. Bansal, Mr. G.S. Pathak, Mr. Mithilesh Tiwari, and other friends, my colleagues, I am welcoming Mr. K. Sampath with a small, very small introduction. मुझे माफ करना अगर थोड़ा हिंदी और अंग्रेजी में मिक्स कर दूं, बिकॉज मैं उतना पढ़ा लिखा नहीं हूं जितना संपत साहब हैं. बट इन एनी केस हमने जो सीखा सुना है क ख ग, क से मीन्स के, और हमारी डायरेक्टरी में ये नाम शुरू वहीं से होता है, मिस्टर के संपत. मैं संपत जी को अब से नहीं, संपत जी को मैं जानता हूं. जब चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट थे तब भी मैं ट्रैवल में देखता था, मैं अपने भाई के साथ आता था. और उसके बाद जब हमें खुशी है कि वो एडवोकेट बन गए और आज की डेट में जो है मिस्टर के संपत चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट नहीं, आज की डेट में मिस्टर के संपत हमारी जो है बार की शोभा बढ़ाते हैं एज एन एडवोकेट. मैं संपत जी का जो है एक चीज से और इंट्रोडक्शन करवाऊंगा कि ऐसा कोई नहीं है कि लोग जानते नहीं हैं. क्योंकि एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है कि ये बताए कोई कि कौन नहीं जानता। ये बहुत बड़ी एक संपत जी की खासियत है कि जिस किसी को मिलते हैं इतनी प्रेजेंट पर्सनैलिटी कि वो कहते हैं ब्रदर, वो सब वर्ड कहते नहीं ब्रदर, ही मीन्स इट। और सबके साथ इतना ब्रदरहुड, प्रोफेशनल ब्रदरहुड और शिक्षा देना और सबको समझाना, सबकी मदद करना, ये मैंने जो है संपत्ति में सबसे बड़ा गुण दिखा है। और मैं आज बहुत खुश हूँ और डीटीपीआई को मैं जो है कॉम्प्लीमेंट करता हूँ कि उन्होंने मेरी चॉइस मिस्टर के संपत को आज जो है इसी चीज के लिए बुलाया। अब कहने को तो इस यूनियन बजट में एक आम आदमी सुने तो कहते जी कुछ भी नहीं है, लेकिन ये बहुत टेक्निकल बजट है। बहुत ऐसी चीजें आ गई हैं, बहुत ज्यादा जो है इनकम टैक्स की प्रैक्टिस बदल गई है। कहीं हमें याद है संपत जी को भी मैं देखता था, हम भी जाते थे, कभी ट्रिब्यूनल जाते थे तो किताबों का बस्ता हम बहुत लेके जाते थे। और आज की डेट में क्या है कि एक तो हर चीज सिंप्लीफाई हो गई, फेसलेस हो गई। अब बस्ते उठाने की जरूरत नहीं है, सब चीजें कंप्यूटर पे होता है। आज की मीटिंग भी जो है इसलिए फेसलेस कंप्यूटर पे ही हो रही है। तो मैं इस बैकग्राउंड पे एक चीज को कहूंगा कि संपत जी के अंदर एक बहुत बड़ी जो है खासियत ये है कि वो हर किसी की मदद करने के लिए, हर किसी को शिक्षा देने के लिए, हर किसी को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सदा जो है तत्पर रहते हैं और बहुत आगे होते हैं। और एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल ये है कि इनके साथ जो भी लगा, ये पारस की तरह इन्होंने सोने इसको, इस लोहे को भी सोना बना दिया। इनके साथ मिस्टर, एक एग्जाम्पल है मिस्टर राजू, वो इनके साथ जो है स्टाफ में काम करता था, आज जो है इसका नाम हो गया राजू बना जेंटलमैन,
क्या
एक
बात
वकील बना
है।
दिया। तो
जी
ये
बहुत।
इनकी बहुत बड़ी खासियत है कि हर एक को ये बहुत प्यार से, बहुत स्वीटली, और ही मीन्स ब्रदरहुड। अब बजट की तरफ हम चलें। हालांकि बजट में और ये जो पिछले साल में जितने रिफॉर्म्स आए हैं उसके लिए मुझे और ज्यादा कुछ कहने की जरूरत नहीं है। मैं संपत जी को जो है इनवाइट करता हूँ कि वो इनकी टेक्निकलिटीज को बहुत सुलझा के अच्छी तरीके से अपनी बहुत सरल भाषा में रख के जो हम लोगों तक को समझ आ जाए। मैं इन शब्दों के साथ अपनी बार का, अपने ऑफिस बेरर्स का सबका धन्यवाद करता हूँ और इनवाइट करता हूँ मिस्टर के संपत को कि वो आज हमारे सब मेंबर्स को अपने जो है इस ज्ञान का हिस्सा बांटें, और जो कुछ भी फाइनेंस इसमें बिल में आया है और जो अभी तक के रिफॉर्म्स आए हैं उनको सरल भाषा में हम सबके सामने रखें। धन्यवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू।
Sampath sir, please.
My dear Manaji, the president of the Delhi Income Tax Bar Association, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, the other office bearers, and my learned brothers and sisters. Manaji said so many things about me. My only regret is that my wife was not hearing all those things. If only she had heard it, then she would know the value of the person to whom she is married, and married now for about 30 years. This budget is a very different one as compared to this finance bill. I would say not the budget, I would say the finance bill, that is the subject which I have to speak upon, is a different one than what has there been in the past. There is a complete shift of emphasis in this case. Whereas in the previous finance bills, the objective was how to regulate the measures for collection of tax. In the present budget, it's different. In the present finance bill, it is different. They want the regulations in such a way as to enable them or facilitate them to sell the assets which are owned by the government for managing the risk. What are the new taxes that they are going to exact? Even prior to the coming of this finance bill, there was a big rumor everywhere that there's going to be a cess, a COVID cess. Some said they are going to revive wealth tax. still some more said that they are going to revive excise duty. That is because this year, because of the onset of COVID, the lockdowns and others, activity has been on a very minuscule scale. And now things are catching up. Now, if activities have been slow, the activities have not been as vibrant as they ought to have been, then income also is affected. And with the income getting affected, the tax also gets affected. Government has realized that. Government realizes that people have been in difficulty, so they should not be burdened any further. And therefore, they have made structural changes, I would say, in the act this time. The emphasis this time has been to go in for the faceless. Now, there are many views with regard to the faceless scheme of things. Why faceless? That's the basic question. Faceless was not necessary if there had been an accountability. If the department were to ask its officers, why have you done a particular thing in a particular manner so as to bring discredit to the government? This no government ever did. And this has never been done in the past 70, 75 years. There is a reason behind it. The reason is that the people whom you want to admonish, they are the very people who are doing the collection for you. If you admonish them, your collections will suffer. And if you do not admonish them, your name would suffer as an administrator. But government seems to have settled for the second aspect of the matter. And now, in order to be able to get out of that loop, what is planned is faceless. Faceless will be based mainly on artificial intelligence. And therefore, the officer exercising his discretion would get extremely limited. So we would get solutions. As somebody said, I will put potatoes from one side and take gold from the other side. It is that type of a situation where you put your problem from one side and you get a solution from the other side, and it may be a golden solution also. So that is how number of establishments which are there, the government wants to bid a goodbye to them. For instance, the Income Tax Settlement Commission. Now, this Income Tax Settlement Commission has been in existence for a number of years now. It was created by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and her thought was that during the course of the assessment and during the course of paying taxes, there may be occasions when errors arise, when difficulties arise, which could not be resolved through the normal process of rectification. Therefore, there should be some forum where the SSC can go and make an open claim, a straight claim, a truthful claim of the mistake and get reprieve from penalty, interest, etc., and then present that amount of tax which he had withheld to the government. This idea of Mrs. Gandhi was a very good idea. It worked very well for a number of years. But then there have been finance ministers who have been against the Settlement Commission. They wanted to abolish the Settlement Commission a number of times. First time they did, they set up a committee under the chairmanship of a retired Supreme Court judge, High Court judge, Madam Santosh Duggal, and the former chairman of the Settlement Commission and the Central Board of Direct Taxes to advise the government. That was in 1996, as to the necessity of the continuance of the Settlement Commission. Now that committee had virtually decided that the Settlement Commission ought to be wound up. But then there were representations, and why I'm telling you is there were representations from Delhi. And the Delhi representations were heard last. And the chairman of the committee, she is on record to have observed. And she told the secretary of the commission in the presence of the committee which made a representation before her that you have taken us all over India. We have met several associations and bar associations, but it is only the Delhi people who have told us the correct and the true thing. And after hearing the Delhi committee, while we were previously of the view that the commission should be wound up, we are now decided that the commission should not be wound up, the law should be corrected. That was the first attempt in 1996. Then again, a further attempt was made, probably in 2004 or 5, where again they said we will dispense with the need of the committee. That also didn't work. The committee continued. And now, finally, the proposals are here to wind up the settlement commission. What they propose now is that whatever applications have been admitted by the commission would become pending applications. Now, there will be an interim board which will be appointed. That interim board will consist of 3 chief commissioners. Each bench of the interim board will consist of 3 commissioners. And SSCs would have the option of either pursuing their matters with the settlement commission or withdrawing from the settlement commission. Now, if they ought to withdraw from the settlement commission, then their matters would go back to the assessing officer to whom they are related. But the rider is that whatever confidential information has been given to the commission by the declarants, that material will not be transferred to the department. And the departmental officer will do the assessment as ordinarily he does. The saving clause here is that limitation with respect to that matter would get waived from the date on which the assessee filed the application to the date of transfer. In this way, matters which have been pending before the settlement commission would get transferred to the board which they are proposing to appoint. Now it is for you to judge whether the settlement commission ought to be wound up or it need not be wound up. As it is, after the emasculation that the settlement commission suffered, perhaps in 2004 or 2005, the jurisdiction and scope of settlements that completely got abridged. They didn't have the full powers as they had earlier. Then there was the decision of the Supreme Court of India which said that so far as the waiver of interest is concerned, the settlement commission will have to abide by the norms which are set by the board. The option to give freedom from interest under section 234B and 234C, etc., that option was again taken away. Then with regard to penalty also, the waiver of penalty, many additions were made. They said such and such penalties which pertain to other jurisdictions, other laws, settlement commission would have no right to waive. And as to prosecution also, certain finer points were added such that liberty from prosecution also could not be secured. So in that way, the settlement commission suffered, I would rather say, grievous injuries, and the cause of the public, it could not serve to the best of its ability, which it could have. So that is the first part of it. And these provisions with regard to the virtual winding up of the settlement commission and its substitution by a board that will come into force from this assessment year. The settlement commission stands wound up from 1st February, the day from the 1st of February 21. Then no application can be made to the commission henceforth from 1st February 21. Applications filed before that date not declared invalid. See, the procedure before the commission is that you file an application. And see, this was the major problem with the settlement commission initially. What they used to say was that an application is filed and it will be at the discretion of the settlement commission that the application will be admitted for settlement. Now, well, the answer was that it should be a full and true declaration, and that nothing should be suppressed or concealed, and that concealment should not have been detected. Now, why that earlier commission had a problem was, that is prior to 1996, why there was a problem was that every time there was an objection, what they would say is, the commissioner would say that concealment in this case has been detected or is likely to be detected, and therefore I object to the admission of the petition. Now, people like us always used to stand up and make the counterpoint that if the concealment has been detected, then place it before the settlement commission. Let the settlement commission see what is the type of concealment. And if it is likely to be detected, as you are saying, then you should not be taking your salary for that month, because you are performing no function at all. Why should you, sitting as a commissioner, perpetrate the concealment by not acting against it? So this was our point, and this was the point which the committee also, they appreciated very greatly, and they said, yes, there is something wrong. Now, thereafter, what they made was, they said that the admission would be almost automatic. But then there would be some cases which are reserved cases. For instance, they may be under the Drug Act or some other act, and any person goes and makes an application, his application would be automatically rejected. So there could be some rejections, but those which are valid applications, they will all be treated as pending applications. Then the interim board, as I told you, the government will constitute, which will consist of 3 members of the chief commissioner level. In the case of difference of opinion, the majority of the board will be applicable, and the interim board will exercise the powers with reference to provisional attachment, exclusive jurisdiction, inspection of reports, power to grant immunity for disposal of pending applications, also to exercise power for rectification of orders, whatever was pending previously, they could take care of that. Where limitation has supervened in the interregnum, that is the date of filing the application and the date on which you are returning that application to the commissioner, the extended period and extended by another 60 days after the constitution of the interim board will be granted. Application vested with power of withdrawal of application within 3 months. Any applicant who is there before the commission, whose application stands admitted, can within 90 days make an application saying that I want to withdraw my application, and such applicant will be allowed the option to withdraw the application, and that application shall, as I said, be forwarded to the concerned assessing officer, with the records also being transferred to the assessing officer, except for the confidential portion. The settlement will abate the moment, the moment the assessee withdraws the application, and the assessing officer shall dispose of the assessment. He will do the assessment as if a settlement application was never made. And there is some time extension which is also granted for assessment in such circumstances. And the central government, it says, will make a scheme, and this is the favorite, the favorite phrase which they have used. They have used this favorite phrase at many places. They say central government to make a scheme, all schemes, kindly note, and this is the common thread which runs, for the purpose of settlement of the petition by the board, so as to impart. What is the objective? Objective is to impart efficiency, transparency, and accountability between the applicant and between the board and the assessee. If it is the income tax tribunal, then it is between the tribunal and the assessee. And if it is the dispute redressal mechanism, it is between the dispute redressal mechanism and the assessee. To the extent technologically feasible, that means they have a rider over here, a saving condition, that if due to technological difficulties, they are not able to achieve a certain purpose, that will be condoned. Optimizing the utilities of resources through economies of scale. They say they have got resources, and they would secure the optimization through the economies of scale. Now, this is again a very misleading statement. They have got enough staff, enough persons to be able to do the work. Now, the question here is in the inverse. If all these things are going to be done by the machines, what are they going to the staff? And why should the staff be there at the cost of the public exchequer? Dismiss your officers first, cause a retrenchment, and then go in for this faceless and other things. Then we can understand. Now you are doing both the things. You are keeping them, paying them, keeping them perhaps idle, and then going in for something which you say is faceless, but which cannot be faceless, as many of us know. And introducing a mechanism with dynamic jurisdiction. Now, what is dynamic jurisdiction? Dynamic jurisdiction is one about which you do not know. Dynamic jurisdiction is one which is spread anywhere in the country, all over the country. Scheme to contain provisions for application, exemption of provisions. Then the scheme, whatever is there, this scheme will be so framed as to have modifications, alterations, eliminations, additions, etc., to be able to suit the new mechanism which they are going to introduce. I'm dealing with it a little detail because the same qualifications they apply with regard to other institutions also. So that is from 1st of February this year, which has gone 2 days or 3 days ago, no settlements will be done hereafter. Then the second, you see, so far as administration is concerned, they are touching the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Excuse me. Nobody ever demanded or said that the tribunal is not functioning satisfactorily. If at all there is any saying on this point, everybody inexceptionably over the years of the existence of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, they have said that this is the body, this is the model tribunal, it's functioned excellently. But then the government is now minded to impart to it greater efficiency, transparency, and accountability to the assessment process at new places, appeal process and penalty process. Since they have introduced this faceless system, they don't know whether this faceless system has been accepted as a proper system, as a valid system, or as a satisfactory system by their SSAs. They don't know. They don't have any input on this one, but they are presuming, yes. Just as this finance bill came, you saw a number of ministers coming and saying, oh, no bill like this, no finance bill like this in the past so many years. This is a novel one. This is a fantastic one. So you start patting yourself on the back even before you have got the result. Promote reduction of interface to the next level, imperative to launch faceless scheme for IT/AT proceedings. They would reduce cost of compliance, increase transparency in the disposal of appeals, help even workload distribution, resulting in the best utilization of resources. The same slogans which they have for the Settlement Commission, they have it over here: promote efficiency, promote transparency, and then have a dynamic jurisdiction, and then the scheme will be such as to have such omissions, additions, eliminations, etc., etc. Now, for this also, the central government, under new section, they are introducing 255. Under that section, they will make out a scheme, and all these schemes, mind you, are such schemes which the government says they would be laid before Parliament. Now, I leave it to you to judge what does this bring by way of an advantage to the SSC, laying before Parliament, and how laying before Parliament is going to see or ensure that these provisions which are now being amended are deliberated upon by Parliament, because they are going to deliberate only on the finance bill. If at all they do deliberate, and it being a money bill, it will pass by a majority vote. And even if there is no deliberation, it can be passed. So let us see how it's going to help. Now, the third point which they are going to do is a third authority. Now, we all know that under section 264, we can always go to the commissioner. And this provision has been there right from the beginning. See, there is a revision by the commissioner, and there's a revision to the commissioner. And under 264, we go to the commissioner. In small cases, we have always been going. But the going has not been so frequent. And the reason for that not being so frequent is because there is no appeal provided against the order of the commissioner in revision in section 264. The only remedy that is available is to go for a writ against that order. And writ, as you all very well know, there can't be a dispute on facts so far as writ is concerned. There can be a dispute only with regard to the interpretation of law. Now, that is why 264 has not been very popular. Now, notwithstanding all that, now they have come back and say that they are going to set up a dispute resolution committee. This is clause 66 of the finance bill. And this dispute resolution committee is especially meant for small and medium taxpayers. It is not meant for all and sundry. It is only meant for small and medium taxpayers. And what does small and medium mean? small and medium mean is the returned income is less than 50 lakhs of rupees and the variation in the income is less than 10 lakhs of rupees. Now, once again, this is going to be a faceless exercise, proposed to be a faceless exercise to the extent technology permits, and they will have the power to reduce, waive the penalty, grant immunity from prosecution, and cases which are search cases, which are survey cases, which are double taxation relief cases, they will not be eligible to go into this committee. And those people who have suffered detention, prosecution, conviction under various laws also will not be eligible for approaching the committee. And the committees, there will be one or more committees, and the purpose is that we have reduced, the government says that because of this Vivad scheme and other measures that they have taken, they have been able to reduce the number of disputes which exist. This type of a scheme, which when introduced, would help them in ensuring that disputes in future are much lesser and they are within controllable limits. So this is the third authority. First is Settlement Commission, second one is the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, the third one is a new authority which is called the Dispute Resolution Authority. Now the fourth authority which they are touching is the Advanced Ruling Authority. Now there are so many things, Atmanirbhar Bharat, as my learned friend, he mentioned at the beginning, Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to do on our own, we have to manufacture for ourselves, and we have to stand on our own legs, we don't have to look to others. But at the same time, we have always been inviting outsiders. It says, come with your technology, come with your money, do business over here, do manufacturing over here. And all of us, how we stood when many companies said that we are not going to continue in China. We said, oh, we are available, come here. It's very simple over here. Little knowing, or even after knowing, I would say that people have hesitation. Outsiders have hesitation to come to this country because we have had so many problems. The Vodafone case is a case of which you all know. And then now this Kane case is also there, where verdict has gone against us. And there have been many cases, and people are not the outsiders. And in fact, it's not what I say. Even the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, he said in his second address from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he warned the Income Tax Department, look, because of you, we are not getting foreigners over here to do business with us. So his predecessors at one time, they had thought that supposing we give them, the foreigners, if they come to India, a definite tax regimen. We tell them how much of tax you will have to pay, what will be the rate of tax at which you are going to make payment. Then perhaps people will be enthused to come to this country and set up industries over here. And they said, yes, this will be a very high-powered committee. This committee will consist of a chairman who will be a retired Supreme Court judge. This committee will consist of vice chairman who would be retired High Court judges. And this committee will also consist of two persons, one law member and one technical member. Law member from the ILS, Indian Legal Service, and the technical member from the Indian Revenue Service. Now the complaint is that there's a lot of pendency before this committee, before this Advanced Ruling Authority. And the pendency is because of this reason, that it is unable to function, chairman, and for want of vice chairman. So they say, since they are not readily available, so we want to give a relook for an alternative which would give rulings in a timely manner. So pendency should reduce, there should be a ruling in a timely manner, because anyone who's going to come over here, he's going to come over here in a time-bound manner. He has his own budget, he has his own timetable, and according to that, he will come. So now they say that we will constitute a board for advanced ruling. So from an AAR, we are AAR, Advanced Ruling Authority, ARA, we are going to a BRA now, Board for Advanced Ruling. Now, the Advanced Ruling Authority will cease, but it wouldn't cease from 1st of February 2021 as the Settlement Commission would do. They would announce a date for the seizure of the advanced ruling authority, and likewise they would announce a date for the board of advanced ruling, and this advanced ruling will consist of 2 members, and these 2 members would be of the rank of chief commissioners, and these rulings which are given by this board of advanced ruling authority will neither be binding on the applicant nor on the revenue. That simple reason is that even in the past, many of these advanced ruling authorities, see why people are not coming. Now the government says the chairman is not, we are not getting chairman. Now who is the chairman according to this statute? The chairman is a retired Supreme Court judge. Then what happens if there is an appeal? The appeal goes to the High Court. Effectively, therefore, an order which is written by a retired Supreme Court judge goes for adjudication before the High Court, before a judge of a lower stature. So that is why many chairmen, many Supreme Court judges, self-respecting judges, they say, no, there's no point in going to an authority where the judgment itself would go to a lower court, from the court from which we have retired. So in any case, they are now providing that so far as the board is concerned, the appeals would go to the High Court and the records would be transferred. See, whatever changes, mutatis mutandis you have to make, those changes shall be made, and these changes, records will be transferred, personnel will be transferred, disputes will be taken care of, whatever pending disputes are there, such all. Now, once again, some amendments in the different sections are made. That is, under section 245S, it was provided that the ruling of the advanced ruling authority would be binding on the parties who have made the application and the revenue. Now that clause is being taken away because an appeal is being provided. It's been made optional. Then in 245T, instead of reading advanced ruling authority, we are going to read board of advanced ruling. Then in 245U, whatever power was exercised by the advanced ruling authority, that power will now be exercised by the board. These are all, transitory changes which are being made to facilitate the transfer from the advanced ruling authority to the board of advanced ruling. Now there are provisions which are affecting most of us. These are administrative. This is with regard to how the government is going to administer whatever I have spoken to you till now. Now, they say that we are going to simplify the procedure for taxation also. And the first of this, which is very loudly touted, is the one with regard to the dispensing with the filing of return by senior citizens. They say resident senior citizens who is of the age of 75 or above shall not be required to file the return of income if he has only pension income and interest income. So there's a lot of noise being made with regard to this provision. See how simplified, how simple we have made the provision. We are not weighing on the senior people and how we respect them. Now, what is it? For whom is it being provided for? If you are saying you are providing for senior citizens, you ought to provide for everybody who is above the age of 60. Why are you doing only for 75? Number one. Number two, if for the people who are 75 and above you are providing, why not provide for all their income? You are providing only for pension and interest. Supposing somebody above 75 has wrongly invested some money in some company and he is getting a dividend, then for the sin of investing money in a company and earning dividend, he is deprived of this benefit which you are otherwise providing. Maybe a small capital gain is there. Maybe such other income which does not fall within the definition of pension or interest is there. So that being the case, whatever has been done, they have done it, but it's not going to be extremely useful or even applicable to a large number of people above the age of 75 if they are SSEs. The second one is with regard to the leave travel benefits. Now, as we all know, leave travel benefits are provided to employees under subsection 5 of section 10, and there is an exemption with regard to the leave travel benefits in a certain block of years. Now, because of this COVID epidemic, people have not been able to travel, and consequently, they have not been able to get the benefit of the leave travel assistance, which came to them free of tax. So it was announced that 1/3 of the amount, see, normally they get about 1 lakh, so they said about 35,000 rupees or something, they would be provided for in cash, provided further that cash was spent with a voucher obtained for that spending on an expenditure which has 12% GST. So there are so many qualifications. You draw the money and buy something which has 12% GST, then to an extent of 36,000 rupees, you would get the deduction. So this is with regard to the benefit to salaried employees in respect of the leave travel concession, which they would otherwise have been entitled to. Then the next one is with reference to tax audits. Now, we all know that accounts are required to be audited if the turnover exceeds 1 crore, or in the case of professionals, it exceeds 50 lakhs of rupees. Now, last year they made it 5 crores if 5% or less of the less than 5% of the transactions are in cash. Now they say to incentivize non-cash transactions and to promote digital economy, to reduce compliance burden, we would increase the threshold from 5 crores to 10 crores of rupees. That means if the transactions in cash are less than 5 crores of 5% of the total turnover, then up to 10 crores of rupees, no audit would be necessary. But then we have to contrast this provision with section 44 AD. What does 44 AD? Now, what does 44 AD say? 44 AD says that if you have income of business income of rupees
8% say.
Less than 50 lakhs of less than
Turnover is less than 1
turnover is less than 1 crore, then 8% tax has to be paid, and it will be 5% if it is
6%.
6% if it is
Through check.
if the payments are through check. Now, if somebody is opting for this other scheme, then this particular provision will not be useful at all. So whenever, if they made this provision, when they made this provision, they should have considered the other aspect of the matter too. One relaxation that they have given is with regard to dividend income. So dividend income, if it is announced late, then people suffer 234C interest. Now they say, in order to avoid the incidence of 234C interest, dividend income will be taxable on receipt basis. Then the next provision which they have made is with regard to the conversion of an urban cooperative bank into a banking company. Now, there is a provision in the statute which is called 44DB. It provides for computation of deductions in the case of business reorganization of cooperative banks. It inter alia provides for apportionment of deduction between the predecessor cooperative bank and the successor cooperative bank in proportion to the number of days before and after the date of reorganization. Now, the transfer of capital asset by the predecessor to the successor, it is being provided, will not be taken as a transfer. Transaction of shares by the shareholders in the predecessor cooperative bank in the case of business reorganization would also not be regarded as a transfer. Now, there are certain sections from which they give the allocations. They are with regard to depreciation. The allocations on time basis are with regard to amortization of preliminary expenses under section 35D. They are also with regard to amortization of the amalgamation and this unabsorbed depreciation, carry forward of losses, and amortization of VRS expenses. So with regard to all these, protection is being provided that between the predecessor and the successor, allocation will be made on time basis, and that section 47 will not apply to such that it could be called a transfer. The gist of the whole change is that when an urban cooperative bank is converted into a banking company, it's to be considered as a business reorganization so as to attract section 44DB. Now, as I told you in the beginning, the emphasis this time has been on privatization, and very loudly they have said, this is not anything concealed or suppressed. Unlike in the past, very loudly they have said, yes, we are going to do privatization to banks, LIC, and others. Now, whenever privatization takes place, there are a number of assets and liabilities which are there in the balance sheet. Now, there could be a company, and that company could be having 10 units. And the idea could be that out of these 10 units that we have, we will hive off 2 units or 3 units, and the rest of the units we will maintain. Then what about the allocation of depreciation, unabsorbed losses, etc., etc.? So for that purpose, in order to facilitate the reorganization, a new explanation 6 is proposed to be added to subsection 19AA of section 2. And that would say that reconstruction or splitting up of a public sector company into separate companies shall be deemed to be a demerger if such reconstruction or splitting up has been made to transfer any asset of the demerged company into the resultant company. 2, resultant company is a public sector company. 3, fulfills the other conditions notified by the CG. Now, this other conditions to be notified by the central government is again in the womb of future. We would not know what are the other conditions which they would be notifying. But side by side, they also want to amend section 72A1. They say first step is to substitute clause C to provide that the section would apply in the case of amalgamation of one or more public sector companies with one or more other public sector companies. Then the second point they make is that insert clause D to provide that the section would apply in the case of amalgamation of an erstwhile public sector company with one or more company or companies subject to certain further conditions which provide for the carry forward of depreciation, losses. Now, what is strategic disinvestment? What is control? And what is erstwhile public sector company? They are all proposed to be defined under this section. More the definition, more is going to be the controversy. More the controversy, more the litigation. So let us see how they are going to resolve this issue. Now, normally what we expect is, and what the government was advised and the government also proclaims is, that they are going to spend more and more spending. And so far as the public is concerned, to put more and more money in the hands of the public. Now, how do they do it? They say that if you contribute to a provident fund or to a unit in excess of 2,50,000 rupees, then you would not get the benefit of interest with reference to such contribution as made by you in excess of 2,50,000 rupees. Now, this is the way you promote savings, perhaps. Then, recurring issue is with regard to the provident fund contributions, which have to be deposited with the authorities by companies and other employers. The 43B provides that a disallowance will be made if by the date of filing of the return, the dues under Provident Fund, ESI, etc., have not been paid. Now people started reading into that line and they said, well, if in terms of the Provident Fund rules or the ESI rules or other rules, the amounts have not been paid during the course of the year also, within the number of days as prescribed under the respective rules, then again 43B disallowance will occur. Now this was not agreed to by several courts and amendments were made, and those amendments which were made in the Act were also not helpful to the department in order to control it. Now these amendments, they were relied upon and they were dilated upon and explained in Vinay Cement Limited, Alom Extrusions Limited, and many other cases, where they said that the testing date would be the date of filing the return. If during the course of the year there have been any variations, there have been any deviations, then those variations or deviations will not lead to a disallowance. Now, the Act is being so provided, amended, that even if there are deviations, that is to overrule all these court orders, they say that disallowance under Section 43B could be made.
36(1) VA.
36(1)
VA.
VA. 36(1) VA, disallowance can be made. Yes. Now, the next provision which they have touched upon is goodwill. Now, if you go to buy a company, or if one company is by another company, let us presume a prosperous company buys a sick company. Now, that sick company may have been established about 50 years ago. Its land value would be abysmally low. Now, when it is selling itself to a more prosperous company, it would certainly wish that it will get more money than what it could otherwise get on the basis of book values. So what it would do is, it would revalue its assets, and the difference between the book value and the revaluation, it will debit to the goodwill account. Now, according to Section 32(1), this goodwill is also an asset, and being an asset, though intangible, it could be written off over a period of years. Now, this facility was okayed by the Supreme Court in Swift Securities Limited. Now, the new provision which they have introduced is that goodwill will not be eligible to any depreciation. As a result of this amendment, the sale of a sick company to a more prosperous company will become difficult, because the sick company would say, let me remain sick, let me not be sold, because that other company is not going to pay me the money that I deserve otherwise. Now, the withholding provision of tax under Section 196D provides for deduction of tax on income of foreign institutional investors from securities as referred to in Section 115 AD 1A Clause A. Now, since the rates of deduction under this section and the direct taxes DTAA were different, so there was a number of controversies erupted on this account. And now they finally say that this will be lower of the two, as a result of which there would be some relief to foreign institutional investors in this regard. The next point is, amendment is with reference to the repatriation of capital of a partner on the dissolution of a firm. Now, supposing there is a firm which has been formed, say, about 25, 30 years ago, and now the partner wants to retire, and he has a certain capital. The government says you take the capital and go, it's fine. But then, if you attempt to value the goodwill and take a amount, then we will take the tax on the larger amount that you are taking, less the book value. So, they say that we are rationalizing this provision. I don't see any rationalization over here. I would rather see it as an appropriation or a share that the government wishes to take. Then again they say, we are going to rationalize the provision with regard to charities. They give a benefit, certainly, that previously educational institutions, hospitals, etc., 1 crore was the amount which was prescribed under section 1023C. Now they say there's 1 crore will become 5 crores. Further, however, to the condition that if there is any corpus donation which is received by such institutions, that corpus donation will have to be deposited in a special fund which is going to be contrived by the government. And if it is not so done, it should not be treated as a corpus donation. Then there are provisions where they say what is liable to tax. Liable to taxes on which a demand has been raised by the department under a statute that is liable to tax. We all know section 50C, which says for selling a property, the sale price, irrespective of what is mentioned on the stamp paper, will be the circle rate. Now this applied with regard to capital gains. There is a corresponding provision which applies to dealers in property. That is section 43CA. This 43CA permitted a deviation of 10%. They are now liberalizing it in view of the difficulties which are faced. You see, certain places, the circle rate is very high and the actual value is low. So they say now safe harbor rules will extend from 10% to 20% in the future. Then there are a number of provisions which they have made for waiving limitation, etc. 148. Waiving limitations. See, previously the limitation was a year. Now they are reducing it to 9 months. If you have to revise a return under section 139(5), you could do it prior to assessment or within 1 year of the date of filing of the return. Now they say under 139(5), the time period will be 9 months. Notice to be issued for assessment under section 143(2) within 3 months of the conclusion of the assessment year in which the return was filed, financial year in which the return was filed. Then under section 143(1), again the time is being reduced. 143(1) processing is to be done with, was to be done within 12 months. Now it has to be done within 9 months, and so on and so forth. Then there are some provisions with regard to reassessment. We have always been fighting this reassessment procedure and provisions. And this reassessment procedure and provisions have been very well interpreted, I would say, very properly interpreted. I'm nobody to say proper. I would say interpreted in favor of the SSCs in terms of the language in which they stood. Many of my brothers and sisters would be surprised to know that it is the great jurist, Justice H.R. Khanna, who wrote the judgment in the case of Lakshmani Meval Das. What is information? What type of information would constitute material for registering a belief of escapement of income? Is it any material that comes to the hands of the department that will constitute material sufficient or valid for reopening a case? Then in another case, I don't remember the name of the case, he said that the stability of an assessment or the finality of the assessment cannot be lightheartedly disturbed. So we have been taking advantage of these pronouncements from time to time. Now the government says that we will overhaul 147. Under the Act, provisions relating to escapement of income, they notice, has been provided for under section 147. A reason is required to be recorded by the assessing officer. And after recording the reasons and after taking necessary approvals, he has to issue a notice under section 148. And that has to be done within a specific time limit. It can't be done in perpetuity. There is a time limit for doing it. Then, with regard to search cases, how to handle such cases? So what they did was that they found that there was a limitation of reopening cases for 8 years at that time. I'm talking of the olden days, 8 years. And supposing some paper or document were to be found in a search which related to a period longer than 8 years, earlier to 8 years, then they were unable to take any action on that paper because that had become barred by limitation. So they evolved a block assessment scheme. In that block assessment scheme, they said that papers for 8 years could be considered, because 8 years was a limitation period, could be considered, and for that a special assessment will be made. Now this block assessment scheme was introduced by the then finance minister, who later became our prime minister, Manmohan Singh Saab. And this block assessment, which was introduced and which was operative for quite some time, was again found to be not satisfactory so far as the resolution and the collection of taxes in such cases was concerned. So they introduced section 153 A, B, C, D, etc., almost of the type. And this 153 C, A, B, etc., they were being utilized for completing such assessments for 6 years, because the limitation from 8 years got reduced to 6 years. For 6 years they were doing so. And then we had the decision coming in the case of, what is that decision? In the case of where they said, Kabul Chawla, where they said that in an assessment which is framed under section 153C, where an assessment had originally been framed, in the new assessment under section 153C, what would be the base would be the seized material alone. They could not take recourse to other materials to frame such assessments. Now they say that we are rehauling the whole thing, and that 153A and 153C, etc., which are currently operative, will cease to be operative from 31st March 2021 for any search conducted after that date. Meaning thereby that if any search is conducted after the 1st of April 2021, sections 153A and their ilk will not apply to such assessments, to such cases. Then assessments or reassessments or recomputation in cases where search is initiated 132, 132A shall be under the new procedure. After 142021, there is a new procedure. The Section 147 proposes to allow assessing officers to assess or reassess or recompute any income escaping assessment for any year. Before such assessment or reassessment or recomputation, as notice is required to be issued. Now they are very clearly providing. See, we had all gone to the court, Chugalal, what's that case? Chugalal's case, where we said that there has to be a recording of the reasons. Those reasons have to be perused by the assessing officer. There has to be an application of mind to those reasons. There has to be material to support those reasons. Then all this has to be forwarded by the assessing officer to a prescribed authority, who would be the joint commissioner or who would be the commissioner in certain cases. That other person is required to give approval before issuing the notice under section 148 of the Act. Now, all this has been codified, and now they say, introduce a new section 148A, and now further they say that this information with regard to SSC's income is now flowing us through the information technology medium from various sources. So we do not depend on any one source for information. So we collate that information. Wherever we see mismatch, then we get into action. And so 148A is a new section which they are introducing, and where they see a mismatch or where they find that some inquiry is needed, where they find that there is some lacunae, they would issue a notice. The assessing officer will issue a notice. Previously, the system was that a notice is issued and the SSC has to seek reasons. And those reasons are provided to the SSC if and only if he has filed a return. Now they say no. And this is more like the Japanese system, where a person is called and told, look, you have been assessed for this much of income. We have information that you have this additional income which is not included in your return. What would you like to do? Now, supposing the person acquiesces and he says, yes, you please put me to tax with regard to this additional income. They collect the tax and leave the person. Now, whether these people are going to leave the person after he makes a declaration or after he acquiesces or accepts is yet to be seen. But 148A provides for assessment in that fashion. It says that the assessing officer will record the reasons, will put the assessee to notice on those reasons. The assessee will be heard, and after the assessee has been heard, then if the assessing officer has to initiate 148, then he would after taking the approval of the commissioner, he would issue notice to the assessee. This is the new procedure. The new procedure now, if it is to be applied to such cases, takes us back by 30 years or 35 years or so, because that was the procedure which was in vogue at the time when the block assessment concept was introduced. The block assessment concept was introduced because that procedure was not serving them well. But once again, they want to go back to that same procedure, scheme and other things they say we will announce. And as I told you, faceless scheme, efficiency, accountability, government has never been able to secure at any time any accountability, as I said in the beginning. So what type of accountability they are going to secure is for all of you to see. So this, my dear friends, is the long and short of these provisions. There are several other small provisions by way of extension of time limits, etc. For Kar Vivad, they have extended the time limit. For this rural affordable housing, they have extended the time limit. For investment in startups after selling property, they have again extended the time limit. All of them have been done by 1 year only. And perhaps the government wants to give more time to people because of this COVID menace, such that they are able to do or derive the benefit of this some of these legislations which are SSC friendly. So my dear friends, this is the long and short of it, as I said. And well, that's all. This budget, as I initially told you, is more with regard to structuring the act such that it is aimed at helping the SSC rather than structuring it in such a manner as to collect more money. Thank you, my dear friends.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Such a wonderful deliberation. Now I invite to Mr. KG Bansal. Please, कोई क्वेश्चन क्वेरी में अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है, somebody raise your hand please. अगर उसको अनम्यूट कर दें प्लीज. बंसल साहब
जी.
एक विक्रम कक्कड़ है, रेज, उसकी कुछ क्वेरी है प्लीज. अनम्यूट कर दें प्लीज मिस्टर विक्रम कक्कड़ को. कक्कड़ साहब आवाज आ रही है आप तक?
सर विक्रम कक्कड़ है ही नहीं सर.
3 और हैं.
I would suggest that if there are any queries now, please put it on your site. I will take it and answer it.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Will that be convenient? If you could put on your site, I will answer it tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you.
Now I invite our secretary, Mr. KG Bansal, please convey a vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. I, on behalf of all the members and the executive committee of our bar, I would like to thank today's speaker, Sri K. Sampath Sahab, who is also member of our bar, for delivering a wonderful lecture on the Union Budget 2021 in such simple way and words.
You always say wonderful, whether it is so or not.
No, sir. No, sir. Absolutely, sir. Beautiful. I would also like to thank today's coordinator of the study circle, Sri Rajesh Mahana ji. Also, would like to thank to all the members of our bar as well as members of the other bars for joining this webinar and making it a success. A special thank to Sri Avinash Jain ji, जिन्होंने के यूएस से ज्वाइन किया हुआ है और संपत साहब के अच्छे फ्रेंड भी हैं. अविनाश जैन जी ने सर यूएस से ज्वाइन कर रखा है.
अविनाश जैन साहब
जी सर. पीके शर्मा जी, पीके वासने जी और so many other members of the bar. थैंक यू वेरी मच सर, अगेन थैंक यू वेरी मच सर।
And
एक
thank you for the
इन्फॉर्मेशन और देनी है
opportunity.
सभी मेंबर्स को। हमारी 11 तारीख को 5 बजे जीएसटी पर हमने मीटिंग रखी है। जो यूनियन बजट में जीएसटी पर भी काफी अमेंडमेंट हुए हैं, काफी चेंजेस आए हैं। तो श्री पुनीत अग्रवाल एडवोकेट हैं, वो इस मीटिंग में हमारा ज्ञानवर्धन करेंगे। तो 11 तारीख को 5 बजे हम जीएसटी में फिर मिलेंगे एक बार। तो अगेन सर थैंक यू वेरी मच। संपत साहब थैंक यू वेरी मच।
अरे my dear, thank you all for bearing with
Thank you,
me.
Sampath ji. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, thank you, brother. Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the participants, please. Now meeting is over. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Ritika ji, please shut off कर दें।
सारे लोग लीव ले लें। थैंक यू।
बंसल साहब, ये आपके पास होगा शायद। यस।